Tick-tock, time to rock. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone who's watching all around the world. I'm your friendly neighborhood philosopher, David Wood, and with me now is a woman who will go down in history as one of the great warriors of the Christian faith of our generation. And we're going to be having a talk about the corruption of the Quran. One of the great myths of Islam is that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. As we're going to see, it has not. And we're going to be taking a very close look at one of my favorite passages, which I just had up on the screen. You could screenshot that. You'll want to be familiar with that passage. Sahih Muslim, number 2286 in the Sunnah.com edition, talks about entire chapters of the Quran coming up missing. Learn the reference, 2286, 2286, 2286, Sahih Muslim. And going to be really cool to go through that passage as well as plenty of other material. Did want to give a quick shout out to the Boom Squad members who are at legendary status. We have Yes We Cantaloupe, the Highlander for Yeshua, George Manat, Get to the Choppa. Have you noticed like people come up with like awesome names? Hug Lover, Michelle Marie, Daniel Svindlin, Jonathan Gale, and Rebecca Yee. Thanks to everyone for supporting the channel. Hatun,
yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what DCCI is? By the way, everyone, the link to Hatun's channel, DCCI Ministries, is in the description box. It's similar to what a lot of us here in in America do, right? A lot of us here in America, notice our pattern is we either just make videos sitting in our rooms or we, go live or something like that. But a lot of the videos on DCCI are completely different in nature. Why don't you tell us what you do?
First of all, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are. And thank you, David, for having me.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say we are that much difference. Only difference is I live in UK and we have privilege of spending our time at Speaker's Corner on Sundays. So therefore, we do have little bit different content, but that will be just like very little of it. DCCI Ministries. DCCI stands for Defend Christ, Critic Islam. And in summary, that's what we do. We defend Christ. We answer Islamic objections as well as Muslim objections on Christian scripture, deity of Jesus, Trinity, anything links with Christ. And also we critique Islam because Islam never been accountable for anything. I think it is time for it is to be kept accountable. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. We do that mainly on Sundays at Speaker's Corner. It is a small square in London where we have freedom of speech. We can say whatever we want to, as soon as you back up what you say, because end of the day you are responsible for the claims you do. It is a great place, help us to learn our faith better, as well as helps us to learn new skills, challenge Islam, learn about Islam, and be grateful that Sunday after Sunday that we are Christian, we are rescued and redeemed. Beside that, we do evangelism, street preachings, British Museum tours, discipleship trainings, those kind of basic Christian things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it has a different kind of feel. I really like being able to prepare every word of what I'm going to say and getting it exactly the way I want in my videos. Whereas at Speaker's Corner, you're trying to get your points across, but you've got a crowd around you trying to shout you down and trying to make sure no one hears you. So yeah, very different feel. But what's been your experience there over the years?
I think it's highlight of my week. Sadly, currently it's like lockdown in England. We haven't had Speaker's Corner for 3 weeks, so we get to miss it. It helps you to think on your feet. You have to think very quickly. You are responsible for what you say and how you say it. you get to preach, like you get to meet with people who never met any Christians in their life. You might be the first Christian they ever met, or you get to meet with Muslim missionaries who hates Christ, so therefore they hate you.
Before we continue, we've gotten a lot of comments about your mug. So Mike AD says, lol, Hatun, you can't just low-key sip from that gallon mug. Miss T said, I want Hatun's mug. Dave Corrigan said that mug. Ellie, love the size of the cup. Hatun. Mr. P says, is 5-gallon mugs a new thing? Gerard Perry, that is a great mug.
Okay, I don't want anyone to think I am greedy. As a Christian, I am greedy for Lord Jesus Christ, but not for physical thing, hopefully. So I'll show you my small mug, first of all. So in here, I've got this mug. I call it Sauda. Okay.
Where did you get? Was that specially made, or can you get that in certain places?
I did get it from a certain place. And then in here, I've got another one. I call it Aisha. And I think I haven't named this one, but I think I will name this one as Hafsa. So it's not a mug, it's just something you can put like stuff on it. Okay?
Yeah, I'm getting,
those are the small ones.
I'm getting some awesome ideas here for products to sell people.
No, those are not for sale. I wish I thought before I got them I could buy like 13 of and then use it as Muhammad's wives, but I have only 3.
If you ever want to share where you got them, I would love to have 9 or 11 of them in the background of my videos.
It is in my to-do list. Before I die, I am hoping I'll have the series of it. And then this big one, actually, it was in a sense specially made, so that it has something in it to keep the coffee warm. So it takes just over 2 liters. I got this. I was a bit unwell a couple of weeks ago, so someone made it for me in the intention that I don't walk too much because I wasn't able to kind of do many things. So I don't know where you can get it because it was just given to me.
Yeah,
but,
I feel like a total wimp right now because I've got this little thing of Lucky Jack nitro cold brew coffee, but this thing is like it looks big because I've got it close up here, but if you look at it beside my head, it's actually really like a little drink.
Actually, it's very practical. Like if I have like 6 of this in a day, it's like that will be coffee, and then I've got a little bit small of this. This is like 20 mugs of tea. And day is over.
We have Islam Critiqued. Do you know the channel Islam Critiqued?
Yeah, I do know.
Islam Critiqued just commented, I want a bunch of those mugs so I can beat them lightly.
Well, you need to have 12 or 13 toothbrush, and that will cost you money.
Yeah, only with the toothbrush to beat them lightly, Islam Critique. But he knows that. He reads the Quran, which doesn't say that at all. All right, one more question before we jump into the topic. Why don't you tell us how you became, of all the things you could be doing in the world, why you became interested in Islam? Because I've seen both men and women, but I've seen women who are interested in apologetics and have a heart for reaching Muslims start off and go into that ministry, and like a year later, they're not doing that anymore. And the reason is, as soon as they started challenging Islam in any way, the comments they get are, you whore, you prostitute, you this, you that, you want to be a porn star and stuff like this. And there's so much abuse. And again, I've seen this from men and women where people, I want to reach Muslims with the gospel and I want to go out and do this. And then they start doing it. And then they get so much abuse heaped on them that they decide, I would rather do anything in the world than this ministry, and they end up doing something else. So why did you get interested in reaching Muslims, and how did you stay the course in spite of everything they heap on you?
I don't think I get abused as much as other people get. Because I keep myself away from YouTube. I usually kind of just in my own circle do my own things. Because I critique Islam, I think first of all I reach Muslims in the intention. I am convinced that there is no any other way for any individual to spend time, any individual to get to heaven that beside Lord Jesus Christ. He is the only way, and Scripture is very clear, and I am convinced of it. And if God of universe, who holds all universe with the power of His word, willing to step into the world and then express His love and show it to humanity, I don't think I have got right to kind of say, oh, I'll just move away from that love. You feel your heart gets sweetened towards God, and that's directly when your heart links with the heart of God. There is no any other way, because you see heart of God cries for the lost, and our Muslims are lost. They are desperately need Lord Jesus Christ. I'm just privileged that God is asking me or using me to reach Muslims. Regarding the way I reach Muslims is, as you are aware, there are lots of different ways out there. I use critiquing Islam. Reason for that is I'm just on the defense. Like, the moment you meet with Muslim, doesn't matter if they never met any Christians, doesn't matter if they never practiced anything about Islam, or if they are missionary. As a Christian, I am in a place I have to defend what I believe. Trinity, deity of Jesus, sin and salvation, and authority of the Bible. So I'm just responding to that. As responding to that, what I notice is Muslims don't know their faith, and I feel it is one of my responsibility to help them to think through their faith. So critiquing them. And I don't know, but as long as God allows me to live and have breath, I hope I will continue to do so. I have seen many brothers or sisters who got hurt, but life is short. I don't have much expectations for those who hated Jesus to kind of give me flowers or put carpets in front of my feet. When I tell them their prophet is false, they are going to go to hell. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I'm gently forced into it by God, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Well, we are going to go into our topic now, and that is one of the topics that really interests me. Because let me go and tell you Muslims who are watching what I think about this. We go to your book. And your book over and over and over and over again, not just the Quran, the Hadith as well, over and over again affirms the inspiration and the preservation and the authority of the gospel. Your God commands us to judge by the gospel. Your God commands us to read the gospel, to stand upon the gospel, to believe in the gospel, and it says that we have the gospel. Then we turn to you Muslims and you say, nope, you don't have the gospel. All the Quran is saying is that your gospel has been corrupted, and that's why you need to turn to the Quran. And so I read all of these passages, and your God is saying exactly the opposite of what you're telling me. Then we turn to the issue of the preservation of your book, and in your sources and in the history of your book, we find change after change after change after change, entire chapters coming up missing, large passages coming up missing. Muhammad's original companions couldn't even agree on which chapters were supposed to go into the Quran. We find your people burning all of the manuscripts to cover up all the differences in them. It is one big disaster from beginning to end. The preservation of your book is one of the most epic catastrophes in the history of book preservation. And you look at all of that and you say, the conclusion is perfect preservation right down to the letter. So We look at the history of the Quran, which is one big, massive, giant mess. Endless sources on the corruption of your book. You look at all of that and say, perfect preservation. Then you've got your books saying that our books have been perfectly preserved, and you say, aha, your books have been corrupted. I try to figure out what this religion is, that it makes you look at the evidence and conclude the exact opposite of whatever you're seeing in front of you. Whatever I see in front of me. If I see black, I say it's white. If I see white, I say it's black. If I see up, I say it's down. If I see down, I say it's up, right? No matter what the evidence is, you just say it's the exact opposite of what it is. And somehow your religion, which you believe to be the truth, somehow the true religion makes you conclude the exact opposite of everything the evidence tells you. And all I can think is, if your religion is supposed to be the true religion, but it makes you conclude the exact opposite of whatever is the case, then your religion isn't the true religion, it's the false religion, right? Because again, we're in opposite world here with your stuff. So those are my thoughts, but we're going to actually look into this. We're going to look at some passages directly from Muslim sources and from the history of the Quran, and also the material that Hatun likes to share. But Hatun's the guest here, so Hatun, why don't you tell us why you find this? You just give us an overview of your thoughts on this issue of the preservation of the Quran. Oh, let me before we do, just to set up the issue, let me read one passage. Let me read one passage here, and this is from Mazhar Qazi, who wrote many books on basic Islamic apologetics. But when he wants people to understand the miracle of the Quran, there's a quote. This is a Muslim scholar telling Muslims about the Quran. Check this out. Here's what he writes. Muslims and non-Muslims both agree that no change has ever occurred in the text of the Quran. The above prophecy for the eternal preservation, he's talking about Surah 15:9. The above prophecy for the eternal preservation and purity of the Quran came true not only for the text of the Quran, but also for the most minute details of its punctuation marks as well. It is a miracle of the Quran that no change has occurred in a single word, a single letter of the alphabet, a single punctuation mark, or a single diacritical mark in the text of the Quran during the last 14 centuries. So notice, he starts off by saying Muslims and non-Muslims both agree. Everyone agrees on this. Muslims, non-Muslims, they all agree. Not one single change to a word, a letter, a punctuation mark, a diacritical mark. Not one change ever to any manuscript of the Quran ever in the past 14 centuries. Two massive lies there. One, that there's been no changes, and two, that everyone agrees on this. I do not know one single person at the scholarly level who says that. Not one. Not one. But Hatun, what are your thoughts on this?
I know scholars who makes a claim that yes, dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound, Quran is exactly the same what Muhammad received. But I would strongly agree with you. I am not aware of any scholar who kind of today tells me not even single dot changed. For example, Yusuf Ali, who is well known translating the Quran, he says not even a single letter changed in the Quran. Again, even Muslim missionaries from Speaker's Corner tells me Quran has been preserved dot by dot, letter by letter, word by word, sound by sound. And I'm just a bit surprised as I hear this, because I'm just like thinking that can't be possible, because even they didn't have the dots at the time of Muhammad. That's like all huge different story. But sadly 1.8 billion people believe that. I met with Muslims who were telling me the same thing until I showed them the differences, what early Muslims are telling or what the Quran manuscripts are showing. That was just heartbreaking for them, because intentionally Muslims are being lied. I think when people recognize that they've been lied, not only they've been lied by scholars or by their imams, but they think that as they've been lied by their family, because it starts from their family to the mosque, to the sheikh, to the scholars, goes from level to level. And 1.8 billion people believe that.
Now, this is, I just wanted to encourage the viewers as we start going through this material that if you're not sure what you want to get into, if you might be interested in responding to the core arguments of Muslim apologists and so on, you're not sure where to get started, this is a great area to go into. And the reason is, almost every Muslim you'll ever see, again, we'll tell you, perfect preservation right down to the letter. It's a myth. And if they were to do 10 minutes of actual research, if they were to just look up what their own sources say about the preservation of the Quran, or if they were just to look at some manuscripts side by side, they would realize that that's false. So you've got this claim that's almost universal in Islam. It's almost universal in Islam that they will maintain this. Why? Because they've all been told this by their leaders. And yet it's an area where it doesn't take 10 years of arguing with the Muslim to show him that there have been all kinds of changes to the Quran, to show him that his scholars and apologists are just apparently flat out lying, right? I mean, if you've read some of these sources or you've looked at these manuscripts, I don't see how you can say perfect preservation right down to the letter. If a Muslim wanted to say, basically pretty good preservation or something like that, I could see them defending that claim. But when it's just, I'm sure you've noticed this, Hatun, but they can never just, the Muslim apologists, they can never just state a reasonable position that they could possibly defend, right? They can't say, hey, I believe Muhammad was a pretty good guy. They have to say, he's the greatest man in the history of humanity. Everyone is a mere dwarf compared to him. That was it. That was an exact quote from Maududi's Towards Understanding Islam. All the great men of all previous generations are mere dwarfs compared to Muhammad, right? They can't just say, hey, we think he's a really good guy. They can't do it. They have to exaggerate. They can't say, hey, our book's been pretty well preserved. They have to say perfect preservation right down to the letter. I'm about to do a video on Sheikh Yasser Qadi where he's talking about Muhammad's marriage to Aisha, and he couldn't bring himself to just say, hey, in spite of the criticisms, they had a good marriage. They had a happy marriage. He couldn't say that. He had to say it was the perfect marriage, right? They have to exaggerate no matter what they do, no matter what they say. If Muhammad goes 3 inches, they say he went a mile, right? It's just an amazing situation. All right, now.
Actually,
sorry. Oh, go.
I went to a Dawah training meeting. They were training Muslims how to do Dawah. Mm-hmm. And the reason they exaggerate, because if you say something with the exaggeration, people will remember that. And that's what they want. They want people to remember Quran has been perfectly preserved. Mm-hmm. There is not even dot has been changed, because for them, people will go home with that. Mm-hmm. Most of people don't think anyway when they go to those kind of training. So that's the reason for that. If you speak to people's emotions, you will get the people. Mm-hmm. That's kind of structure.
And there's if you look at the history of Islam, you can see how they've gotten themselves into this position, right?
Yeah.
In the Muslim world, if you are praising all things Islamic and praising the Quran for its perfect preservation and praising Muhammad for being the greatest man ever, no one's going to disagree with you, or you'll call them an unbeliever and chop their head off, right? So no one in the Muslim world is going to object to this. And people in the outside the Muslim world didn't have the sources. They didn't know the sources well enough to be able to point out how these things were false. And so Muslim speakers, Muslim dawagandists, they saw this opportunity. Hey, we have an atmosphere of complete ignorance about Islam. We can say whatever we want. We can make up anything we want about Muhammad and the Quran, and people will fall for it because they just don't know any better. And they built their religion on a foundation of complete lies. And that's why I'm telling everyone who's watching, you want to learn this material, because if you've built your case upon a foundation of absolute lies that can be exposed with 10 minutes of research, you're basically inviting a well-trained group of people who study the material to come in there just blast away at your foundations and destroy the whole sham, right? So that's a situation that Muslim apologists have put themselves in. And now every Muslim who thinks perfect preservation, once we get enough people to put the facts in their faces, these are people who are going to look back and say, wow, all of my leaders lied to me about this. If they lied to me about the history of my Quran, what else have they lied to me about? And those are people who are on their way out of Islam. All right, Hatun. Oh, one comment real quick. Morton Storm said, Dear David and Hatun, I am a former Muslim converted to Islam in 1997 and left it in 2007. So Morton was a Muslim for 10 years and is out. We are glad to hear that.
Praise God.
Mm-hmm. Amen. All right, Hatun, well, what do you think? You've been studying this for many years and discussing and debating these things at Speaker's Corner. So, has the Quran been perfectly preserved?
I would say Quran has been perfectly and intentionally corrupted. No, it hasn't been perfectly preserved. I'm trying to figure out why 21st century Muslims would tell us that Quran has been perfectly preserved to the dot, because when we look at the early Islamic sources from time of Muhammad onwards, what we see is Muslims didn't have many issues regarding the corruption of the Quran. So they talk about it, they write about it, but in some way on the way, in 21st century, Muslims start making a claim that Quran has been perfectly preserved. Mm-hmm. I think first place we can go is in the life of Muhammad, where we see actually two people are fighting regarding the Surah 25, Ubay bin Ka'b and Hisham. Hisham is in the mosque. I can give you the reference if it is needed. Hisham is in the mosque both of Umar and Hisham is in the mosque. And Umar is listening Hisham as Hisham prays. And then the way he recites Surah 27, Surah 25 is very different than what Muhammad preached to Umar. Umar wants to go and grab this guy from his neck, but he's like very nice guy. He waits until he finishes his prayer. Soon after his prayer finish, he grab him from his neck and then say, why are you reciting this surah like this? He says, this is what Muhammad taught me. He drags him to Muhammad, and Muhammad listen both of the surah. They are different from one another, and Muhammad says both of them are okay. But by that time, no one knew Allah revealed Quran in different ways, because Muhammad needs to get away from this. All he says is, oh, Quran is revealed to me in 7 different ways. Something happened these 7 different ways, even though it was causing problem between second Caliph and Hisham. Today, we have only one version of Surah 25. We don't know what happened to other 6 versions of this. So we see at the time of Muhammad, there was already problem with the way Quran was revealed. And then Muhammad dies, then he doesn't even kind of bother to tell people to put the Quran together. And then we've got Abu Bakr and story of Umar, where Umar approaches Abu Bakr and then says, okay, now people are dying in the Battle of Yamama, and 70 people died. Suddenly Muslim world freaked out, they are losing the Quran. 70 people who memorize the Quran dies, we are losing the Quran, let's put it together. First Quran comes together in the purpose of, okay, we don't want to forget the Quran, let's put it together. It is the first Buddha, and Zayd bin Thabit puts the Quran together, pass it to Abu Bakr, that part gets to Umar, and then that gets to Hafsa. I don't know if you want to add anything, then I will move to the second one.
I would just like to quote a source.
Okay, I can give the source.
No. I got a source right here. I just want to quote Ibn Abi Dawood's Kitab al-Masahif. Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Kitab al-Masahif. That's Ibn Abi Dawud. So that's the son of the great hadith collector Abu Dawud, and he wrote Kitab al-Masahif, which is basically the history of all the changes to the Quran down to his time. And never been passages have been translated. I think the intro has been translated, but the entire entire book is not available. However, been talking to some people, and word on the street is if I can get the funding together, which I will, there are some people who will translate it, and then we will have it free and available to everyone to read the history of the Quran. And here's one passage from, now keep in mind, this is not Jews saying this is not Christians saying this is not atheists saying this is a Muslim source. And writing on this, which Hatun just mentioned, the Battle of, I say Yamama, that she pronounced it correctly, which is Yamama, but as soon as anyone says Battle of Yamama, people can't stop making jokes, so I deliberately mispronounce it to try and avoid that. Yeah, so basically here's the situation. You had the Muslims, and it's a common myth. Muslims will tell me, oh yeah, hundreds of Muhammad's companions had the entire Quran memorized. Absolute nonsense. That's completely false. People had different passages memorized, and Abu Bakr realized, hey, we'll just send these guys out into battle. Allah promised that he's going to preserve the Quran, so these guys will obviously be safe if I send them all into battle. They got slaughtered. They eventually won, but so many of them were slaughtered that passages of the Quran were lost forever. And for some reason, we can read this directly out of your sources, and Muslims will deny it and think that these Muslims are making this up. Why would Muslims make up things about passages of the Quran being lost? Let me go ahead and read a passage on what Hatun just brought up. This is Ibn Abi Dawud's Kitab al-Masahif. Many of the passages of the Quran that were sent down were known by those who died on the day of Yamama, but they were not known by those who survived them, nor were they written down, nor had Abu Bakr, Umar, or Uthman by that time collected the Quran, nor were they found with even one person after them. Notice what that passage just said. Many of the passages of the Quran that were sent down, that were revealed to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel, many of the passages were known by those who died at that battle. They were known by people who were there in battle. They were known by those people, but those people died. What's the result? But they were not known by those who survived them. They were not known by the people who were left over. Nor were they written down. They hadn't been written down. Nor had Abu Bakr, Umar, or Uthman by that time collected the Quran. So the Quran wasn't collected. Nor were they found with even one person after them. Muslims, do the math for me. If no one remembered the passages, and the passages had not been written down, and he specifically says that this was many passages that people who were in the battle knew, but they died, and these passages were not written down, the Quran had not been collected, and these passages were not remembered by one single person after them, does that mean your book's been perfectly preserved? You say yes. And this is what I went back to. We can go to passage after passage after passage. Entire chapters came up missing. Large passages forgotten. And you will look at all of that and go, perfect preservation, right down to the letter. Then we can look at all the passages, which we'll be doing on Friday with Sam Shamoun. We'll look at all the passages in your book saying that the Bible's been perfectly preserved and is still authoritative for Jews and Christians. We will look at that and you'll say, yep, it's saying corrupted. I feel like I'm in opposite world whenever I'm talking about what's in your books. All right. So, yep, just wanted to read that so they know we're not making this stuff up. But go ahead, Hatun.
You can get the kind of westernized version of this, translated version of this from Sahih Bukhari as well. But Sahih Bukhari doesn't give all the details. So by grace of God, hopefully we will get the proper translation of Ibn Abu Dawud and use it. Mm-hmm. So first Quran has been compiled because like 70 people who memorized the Quran died. Islamic world freaked out from just 70 people. And then we've got the first Quran passed to Hafsa. just to attention, not to Aisha, but to Hafsa. Around 652, we've got the third caliph, Uthman. People go to war. This is Sahih Bukhari 510. People go to war to Azerbaijan and Armenia. From that, Muslims start calling one another. Muslims of Sham and Iraq start calling one another kafir because the way Quran is being recited. Then what happens is chief kind of says, okay, there is an issue now. What we've got to do is we need to make one perfect Quran because we don't want division in Muslim community as there is a division regarding the book of Jewish and Christians. From that, Uthman orders one perfect Quran to be put together. The Quran, which was put together in 632 under Abu Bakr, apparently that wasn't good enough. Now, within 20 years, they are gonna make one perfect Quran. So 4 people get appointed for them to put the one perfect Quran, and as this Quran is gonna be put together, Zayd bin Thabit needs to do research, find the verses, and then collect it. And if there is any disagreement within this committee, 4 people, they need to go with the Zayd bin Thabit's interpretation regarding since Quran is revealed in the dialect of Quraysh. That happens. That's not enough. Like, there is lots of issue within that. We get to hear that Uthman thinks he's got right to order all the written version of Quran to be burned. Today, if I want to burn Quran, I can get hanged. But Uthman burns that. All Muslim community today is simply celebrating it. So Uthman orders Qurans to be burned. As that takes place, what we get to hear is with the first Quran and with the second Quran, that there are some verses made into the Quran only with one person's testimony. And first perfect Quran took place around 652. According to Muslims, today all the Quran Muslims read, this is one of them, this Quran takes us back to Uthman. This is the Quran which comes from the Uthman, because as Uthman put this Quran together, he copied 9 copies, he made 9 copies, and then he sent one perfect Quran with the person who can recite it well to 9 different cities. And this is one of that Quran, apparently takes us back to that Quran. So what we see is from first 2 hadith, 509 and 510 of Sahih Bukhari, there is a problem regarding the recitation of the Quran. Muslims are calling one another disbelievers because the way they are reciting the Quran. We see that only few people memorized Quran, and as they die in the battle, they lost the Quran, and we don't have that, what they lost. Muslims are making a decision what is going to be into the Quran and what is not going to be into Quran. And Caliph of Islam is thinking it's all right to order everything to be burned. Of course, we get to hear how people strongly disagreed with the Quran Uthman put together. Mm-hmm. And currently that's supposed to be Quran, which is 114 chapters Quran, but same Islamic traditions tells us actually there were the Quran with 116 chapters, Ubay bin Ka'b's Quran, which Muhammad told people to take the Quran from, and Masud's Quran was 111 chapters. In somehow Uthman decided 114 chapters, and this Quran was never stamped or heard okay from Muhammad. Muhammad never seen the Quran which is identified as the perfect Quran.
Mm-hmm. I wanted. I'll basically add some passages that confirm what you're saying as you're going through this, because for one thing, guys, just think about that, right? Muslims say that the Quran we have today, perfectly preserved right down to the letter. When, as Hatun pointed out, the entire reason you have the Quran in a book form today is because so much of it was lost, right? It occurs to people, hey, we need this in book form. Why do we need it in book form? We've got people memorizing it. All the people who are memorizing it die in battle. And it's a myth that you had these hundreds of people and they all memorized the entire Quran. That is a myth that is contradicted by your own sources. Muslims who believe you had this entire Muslim community and they had the entire Quran memorized. Ask yourself, where did you get this? By studying or because your leaders told you? Oh, you mean the same leaders who tell you perfect preservation right down to the letter, they're telling you this? So let me get this straight. People who lie to you nonstop tell you something and you still believe them, right? Okay, yeah. Now think about this. From the actual sources that we read, the entire reason we have the Quran in book form is because early Muslims realized, wait a minute, this memorization practice is garbage. We keep losing more and more and more of the Quran. We've lost part of what Allah has revealed to us. It's not in there anymore. No one remembers it. And then they realize, wait a minute, it's a Chinese proverb. The weakest ink will outlast the strongest memory. The weakest ink will outlast the strongest memory, right? And what they realized is, hey, if we're going to keep dying in battle, we don't want to lose more of the Quran. Let's get it in book form. That way, if a bunch of us die, then we'll still have the rest of the Quran and we won't lose more than we've already lost. The entire reason you have a Quran in book form, is because so much of it was lost already. Where in the name of common sense are you getting perfect preservation out of this? Now, Hatun also pointed out that Muhammad's top scholars of the Quran, these names, Ibn Masud, Ubay ibn Ka'b, these were on Muhammad's list of his best reciters of the Quran. And they had different beliefs about what chapters were even supposed to be in the Quran. Ibn Masud, 111 chapters. Ubay ibn Ka'b, 116 chapters. What do you have? 114 chapters. Why do you disagree? Well, we know why they disagreed. Ibn Masud said, Surah 1, Surah 113, and Surah 114 are prayers. These are us talking to Allah. This is not us. This is not Allah talking to us. These are our prayers. Why are we putting our prayers in Allah's speech to us? Allah's speech is Allah's speech to us. These are prayers. These are things we pray, and we've prayed them so long that people think they're part of the Quran. They're not part of the Quran, right? Why is this relevant? Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, learn it from Ibn Masud. Ibn Masud says, you've got, ladies and gentlemen, Muslims, you've got 3 chapters in your Quran that are Muslim prayers. They're not Quran. Perfect preservation, right? Right down to the letter. Now notice, Hatun, this puts Muslims in a dilemma. Because here's the thing. If Muslims believe the Quran that they have today, and they say, this Quran is true and authentic, well, guess what? The Quran we have today is different from the Quran of Ibn Masud. So if Muslims want to believe the Quran they have today, then they have to believe that Ibn Masud was wrong, and therefore they have to believe that Muhammad was wrong, because Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, learn it from Ibn Masud. So if they believe the Quran they have today, they have to not believe their prophet. They have to reject what their prophet said. Their own prophet did not know who the best reciter of the Quran was. So they can believe the Quran they have today, in which case they have to reject their prophet. Or they can believe their prophet. If they believe their prophet, then their prophet obviously knows who the best reciter of the Quran is. Their prophet pointed to Ibn Masud. Ibn Masud said, the Quran you have today is a joke. It's wrong. It's filled with stuff that's not even supposed to be in the Quran. So take your pick, Muslims. You can believe the Quran and reject Muhammad, or you can believe Muhammad and reject the Quran. You can't have both. You can't have both here. I just wanted to read one passage to confirm what I'm saying. This is from Jamia Tirmidhi 3104. If you want this source, you guys can go to Kalam Allah. It's spelled with a U there, not Allah. kalamullah.com, and you can download these same sources, the same editions that I'm using right now in the PDF. This is from Jamia Tirmidhi 3104, and it's a long passage talking about the situation with the early Qurans. Let me go ahead and read a little bit of this here. I believe I have the technology to put this on the screen. Nope, that is, how do I get this up on the screen?
If it is on your screen, you can do screen share.
I got it now. All right, so this is from a long hadith. Az-Zuri said, Ubaydullah bin Abdullah bin Utbah informed me that Abdullah bin Masud disliked Zayd ibn Thabit copying the Musahif. Who's Zayd ibn Thabit? He's the one who put together the Quran you have today, Muslims. He's the one who's responsible. He's the one that Uthman put in charge for compiling this Quran that you have today. Abdullah ibn Masud disliked Zayd ibn Thabit copying the Musahif, and he said, "Oh, you Muslim people, you Muslims, please listen to me here. Avoid copying the Musahif and recitation of this man." This is Ibn Masud, the guy Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, learn it from that guy. And that guy, the one that Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, learn it from this guy, says, guys, whatever you do not copy the Quran of Zayd ibn Thabit. Whatever you do, not his Quran, anything but his Quran. What Quran do Muslims copy? Zayd ibn Thabit. Let's go ahead and read this. He said, "O you Muslim people, avoid copying the Musaf and recitation of this man. By Allah, when I accepted Islam, he was but in the loins of a disbelieving man," meaning Zayd bin Thabit. And it was regarding this that Abdullah bin Masud said, "O people of Al-Iraq, keep the Musahif that are with you." Musahif are their copies of the Quran. "O people of Al-Iraq, keep the Musahif that are with you and conceal them. For indeed Allah has said, and whoever conceals something, he shall come with what he concealed on the day of judgment." So meet Allah with the Musahif. What's going on here? What's going on here? Uthman is ordering everyone to burn all the Qurans. Abdullah ibn Masud, the guy that Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, learn it from that guy. He's saying, don't burn them. The Qurans that they're trying to force on us are wrong. They're defective. They're the wrong Qurans, ladies and gentlemen. We need to not have those. So when they come to burn your Qurans, hide them. Hide them, and you can show up before Allah on the day of judgment and say, I kept my Quran. I didn't go with that false, corrupt Quran that Zayd ibn Thabit, this liar and deceiver, was forcing on us. And what do Muslims say today? Nope, Zayd ibn Thabit's Quran, put together by Zayd ibn Thabit. We can trust everything he says. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you believe Zayd ibn Thabit's Quran, you have to reject Ibn Masud, and therefore you're rejecting Muhammad, because again, Muhammad said, learn the Quran from that guy. And you're saying, no, we don't want to learn the Quran from that guy. What is this? What a big giant mess here, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Hatun, back to you.
Can I also bring attention on the same topic that Ibn Masud got his hips are broken because he didn't want to give his Quran. That was very big deal. Maybe today Muslims are ignoring that, but that was very, very big deal. This guy got like two of his hips are broken according to Islamic tradition. Mm-hmm. And then so you've got Ibn Masud who rejected 3 chapters of the Quran. And then on the other side, you've got Ubay bin Ka'b, another man which Muhammad says take the Quran from. He's got extra 2 chapters, and they're not in the Quran either. Mm-hmm. So you just went with the guy who other 2 people say, yeah, he was young, we knew much better, and Muhammad says take the Quran from. I think that's just like disgrace to Muhammad. But if Muslim wants to bring Muhammad down, that's absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Muhammad doesn't know what he's talking about. All right. Let me hang on. Let me see if I. Yeah. Oh, you can talk for a minute. I want to look up another passage on this issue of Ubay ibn Ka'b here, because there's one I want to read from Bukhari.
Okay.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
And then also we've got Sahih Bukhari 527 talks about how Ubay bin Ka'b was the best of recitation of the Quran. Yet we leave some of his recitations. So Muhammad says take the Quran from this guy, and then Muslim thinks, oh, it's okay, we can just ignore what Muhammad said, and then we can leave some of his recitations out. Mm-hmm. I think that's like another sad thing.
No, yeah, that's actually the passage I was looking up. I just want to put it up on the screen because, as you know, again, we are in opposite world whenever we are discussing Islam. The Quran affirms the inspiration, preservation, and authority of our book. Muslims look at it and conclude, nope, it's calling the book corrupt. We look at the entire history of the Quran. It says that the book was changed over and over and over and over again. Muslims look at it and say, nope, perfect preservation right down to the letter. Then their leaders, their apologists, constantly lie to them, and the Muslim response is, we'll believe whatever they say. We constantly tell them the truth, and they say, nope, everything they say is a lie. So since we're in opposite world, they're not going to trust what we're saying. So I just want to put that passage that you just mentioned up on the screen here. Again, I am not phenomenal with the technology here. Let me try this one more time. And oh yes, I'm good. I'm good, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting better at this. So notice this is Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih al-Bukhari, 5005 in the Darussalam edition. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Who's Ibn Abbas? That is
Muhammad.
That's the granddaddy of Quranic studies. Look him up. He's considered the founder of Quranic studies. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Umar said, Ubay was the best of us in the recitation of the Quran, yet we leave some of what he recites. Right? So wait a minute. They're saying this guy's the best. Now notice, Muhammad says, Abdullah ibn Masud is the best. But Ibn Masud says that the Quran you have today is a lie, right? The Muslims, the rest of the Muslims after Muhammad's death said Ubay ibn Ka'b is the best in the recitation of the Quran. Yet we leave some of what he recites. So some of what he recites as the Quran, we don't recite that stuff. We leave that part off. What is Ubay's response when Muslims are saying, hey, we're not quoting everything you quote? Ubay says, I have taken it from the mouth of Allah's messenger and will not leave for anything whatever. I will not leave it for anything whatever. Right? So Ubay ibn Ka'b says, I'm not leaving this stuff. I'm not leaving this stuff behind. I learned it from Muhammad himself. I took it from him. And the other Muslims are saying, hey, this guy's good. He's the best. He's the best there is at reciting the Quran that we have. But we have to leave off what he said, and you have the interpretation here. It's going to be from Surah 2, verse 106, that they must be talking about abrogated material. But notice, they're disagreeing on what's supposed to be in the Quran. Ubay is saying this stuff is supposed to be in the Quran, and the other Muslims are saying, no, this stuff is not supposed to be in the Quran. Then you have Abdullah ibn Masud. He's saying, guys, you've got stuff in the Quran that's not supposed to be in the Quran. Muhammad's own companions could not agree on what's supposed to be in the Quran. They couldn't even agree on the chapters that were supposed to be in the Quran. What's the Muslim conclusion? Perfect preservation right down to the letter. This is amazing. This religion is amazing. All right, back to you, Hatun.
So if Quran is not perfectly preserved, then Allah is a liar and Islam is false religion. So therefore, because Quran says Allah is going to preserve the Quran, but also Quran says Allah is going to what is the word for that? Surah 15 verse 90 to 91.
He says he's going to protect the reminder.
He's going to shred the Quran.
1591. Yeah. And it's funny because that's in the same chapter as Surah 15:9, which they used to say that Allah is going to preserve the Quran. Yeah. And then they say it's been shredded.
Like, there are two, I think there are two prophecies in the Quran which has been fulfilled. One of them is, if Muhammad is a false prophet, Allah is going to cut his aorta, which Allah does. Other one is Allah is going to shred the Quran, which it has been done. So, so we've got Ibn Masud's Quran, Ubay bin Ka'b's Quran, and Zayd bin Thabit's Quran, and they all disagree with one another. Mm-hmm. But Uthman decides, who never met with Allah, who didn't get the permission or authority from Muhammad regarding what he produced, because Muhammad was like long dead, says, no, we are going to use Zayd bin Thabit's Quran. And as we look at the Islamic tradition, we get to read, actually there were the surahs in the Quran, which was as long as Surah 9, but people cannot remember. That's Sahih Muslim 2286. Like that altogether makes up 128 verses is missing in one part, plus 220 in another case. Like approximately 300 verses are missing because people can't remember.
Now,
that is perfect preservation.
I definitely want to. I started that off at the beginning because the way these live streams go, sometimes, we plan to do stuff and then never actually get it up. I wanted that to be on there so that people could take a screenshot of the passage and at least have the reference. But you brought it up. Sahih Muslim 2286. We want to look at this, and you Muslims, go ahead and read it. We're going to read this passage together, Muslims. We're going to read this passage, and then you're going to tell us, perfect preservation, right down to the letter, and that this is a miracle of Islam. All right? So we're going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and read it. So, again, this is, you see it down here, right above our heads there. That is Sahih Muslim 2286. All right. So, you have the little intro there. This just says that this comes from Abu Musa al-Ashari, sent for the reciters of Basra. They came to him, and they were 300 in number. So by this time, so this is long after the death of Muhammad. Now you have 300 reciters. So this is years later. They came to him, and they were 300 in number. They recited the Quran, and he said, "You are the best among the inhabitants of Basra, for you are the reciters among them. So continue to recite it. But bear in mind that your reciting for a long time may not harden your hearts, as were hardened the hearts of those before you." Who were the people before these reciters? The original generation of reciters. So this is Abu Musa saying, guys, don't let your hearts be hardened and you get sick of reciting the Quran all day. But why would they get sick of reciting the Quran all day? It's the most wonderful thing ever. That's not according to Abu Musa. He's saying, yeah, I understand. It's easy to get really, real sick of sitting around reciting this book all day in order to memorize it. But don't do it, because that's what we did. Now watch what happens. But bear in mind that your reciting for a long time may not harden your hearts, as were hardened the hearts of those before you. We used to recite a surah. So this is a surah. This is a chapter of the Quran, which resembled in length and severity to Surah Barat. That's chapter 9 of the Quran. That's chapter 9 of the Quran. We used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity to Surah Barat. So it's about the same length as Surah Barat, i.e. in the low hundreds, right? In the low, like 129, somewhere in that ballpark. It's somewhere around that length. So in other words, he's looking at all the chapters of the Quran. He's saying it's about the length of that one. So we used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity to Surah Barat. I have, however, forgotten it. Oh, and Muslims want to say, oh, he's just saying he forgot it. He's just saying he forgot it. That's no problem there. I'll bring up the Muslim responses as we're going through. He's saying he forgot it. That's no problem. Wait for it. I have, however, forgotten it, with the exception of this, which I remember out of it. If there were 2 valleys full of riches for the son of Adam, he would long for a 3rd valley, and nothing would fill the stomach of the son of Adam but dust. So he says in this chapter, which I have forgotten, is this verse. Hatun, do you remember this verse in the Quran anywhere?
Well, there are 6,236 of them, but this verse is not there.
So this Quran verse, which Abu Musa, Muhammad's companion, says is in the chapter that he forgot, and notice he's saying he forgot it, but he's telling these people, don't let your hearts be hardened, as were the hearts of those before you. Right? And he says, I forgot this chapter, and he gives a verse out of it. That verse is not in the Quran, so this chapter is not in the Quran. Let's keep going. So, by the way, we have multiple hadiths on this verse, and people remembering that this verse is part of the Quran. Yeah. It's not in the Quran. Now, what are Muslims going to say here? It was abrogated. Muslims learn how abrogation works. Allah abrogates his commands. This is not a command. This is just him saying something about the descendants of Adam. How they're greedy, and if they had 2 valleys full of riches, he would long for a 3rd valley. Nothing would fill his stomach, right? Nothing would ever be enough. This is not a command. This isn't the sort of thing that's supposed to get abrogated. And yet, Abu Musa and Sahih Muslim in a Sahih narration is saying 2 entire chapters, I'm giving you a verse from it. Is that verse in the Quran? No. Is that chapter in the Quran? No. Is this the sort of thing that would be abrogated? No. What is he saying here? He's saying our hearts were hardened. We got lazy. We got sick of reciting this completely ridiculous book that we couldn't stand reciting all day, so we didn't do it, and now we forgot entire chapters of the Quran. Guys, I need you to just be men, Be firm. Keep reciting it. Even if it becomes the most boring and redundant and repulsive thing in the world, you have to keep reading it no matter what. Do it. Otherwise, you'll forget more chapters of the Quran. This is probably one of the additional reasons why the Quran had to be put in book form. They keep losing it, not just because they're dying in battle, because they can't stand reciting this horrible, horrible book. Let's go ahead and keep reading. If there were two valleys full of riches for the son of Adam, he would long for a third valley, and nothing would fill the stomach of the son of Adam but dust. Not in the Quran. Chapters not in the Quran. What's the Muslim conclusion? Perfect preservation right down to the letter. It's a miracle. And we used to recite a surah which resembled one of the surahs of Musabihat, and I have forgotten it, but remember this much out of it, O people who believe, why do you say that which you do not practice? And that is recorded in your necks as a witness against you, and you would be asked about it on the day of resurrection. So these verses actually appear in other places in the Quran, but not as part of of one of the chapters of Musabihat. The Musabihat chapters are the small ones that are the small ones at the end. And so he's saying here there was a short chapter, and I remember a little bit out of it, but that short chapter is no longer in the Quran. Guess what? That chapter is not in the Quran. You have some of the verses that are in other places, but the Quran repeats verses in various areas and so on, very repetitive. And he's saying this chapter we do not have anymore. So this is Abu Musa saying two entire chapters of the Quran came up missing. He's not saying they were abrogated. He's not saying they were abrogated. He's saying we got lazy and our entire generation forgot them. Do not be like us. Please don't be like us and lose and forget more chapters of the Quran. What's the conclusion? Again, perfect preservation right down to the letter. It's a miracle.
So as the perfect preservation takes place in this hadith, can I just express with the numbers? It makes altogether like 348 verses, and then only one of those verses, two verses are in the Quran. So that means 346 verses just from this hadith got lost.
Yep.
That's like a lot of verses.
And let me give one quotation here from Ibn Umar. So this is a companion of Muhammad. He's the son of the rightly guided Caliph Umar. This is from Abu Ubaid's Kitab Fada'il al-Quran. He says, "Let none of you say, I have learned the whole of the Quran. For how does he know what the whole of it is when much of it has disappeared? Let him rather say, I have learned what remains thereof." Right? So this is a Muslim source. This is a companion of Muhammad. And he says, hey, you young Muslim reciters who think you've memorized the entire Quran and you're running around saying how you've memorized the entire Quran. How would you even know what the entire Quran is when we've lost so much of it? When we've lost entire chapters, when we've lost large passages, when we have passages that were lost in battle, when we have passages that were entire chapters that were lost because people were just too lazy. Why are you saying you know the whole of the Quran? You don't know the whole of the Quran. Let me read that one more time. This is Ibn Umar. Let none of you say, I have learned the whole of the Quran. What do all Muslims today? Oh, there are millions of people who've learned the whole of the Quran. What do Muhammad's companions say? Stop lying. Stop deceiving yourself. You don't know what it is. You don't even have it to memorize. Let none of you say, I have learned the whole of the Quran. For how does he know what the whole of it is when much of it has disappeared? Let him rather say, I have learned what remains thereof. What do Muslims say? Perfect preservation right down to the letter. What do Muhammad's companions say? We've lost a bunch of it.
So it's not only they lost like whole 2 chapters, which is like 346 verses. Not only Umar's son confirms that actually we've got only leftover. We read again, talks about Surah 33. Actually supposed to be as long as Surah 9, I think. No, Surah 2. It's supposed to be as long as Surah 2. Yet Surah 33 is...
I actually forget. Let me check real quick. I've got the quotation here somewhere. Let me see.
Yeah.
She said a couple. Aisha has said a couple of different things, but yeah, Abu Ubaid's Kitab Fada'il al-Quran. Aisha said Surah 33 used to be recited in the time of the Prophet with 200 verses. So yeah, that would be in the long region, 200 verses. But when Uthman wrote out the codices, he was unable to procure more of it than there is in it today.
Yeah.
More than 100 verses. More than 100 verses came up missing from that one chapter. 2/3 of chapter 33 came up missing, and we can only assume that these were among the passages that people lost in battle, right? And by the way, it's good because Surah 33 is probably the grossest chapter in the Quran. That's where you have Muhammad and Zainab. That's where you have Allah saying, "Oh, Muhammad, you want more than 4 wives? No problem." That's where you have Muhammad, Allah abolishing adoption to allow Muhammad to have the wife of his own adopted son. That's where you have a lot of 6 stuff. And so we can only imagine the more than 100 if they kept the stuff that was least disgusting to them. My goodness, what else was written in that? And by the way, I'm not sure what you think, Hatun. I think the missing verses of breastfeeding were probably in that chapter, and those were part of the reason some of those came up missing.
Yeah, my reference kind of says Surah used to be actually as long as Surah 2, which is 286 verses.
Yep.
That means 230 verses of the Surah 13 is missing. And in this missing one, we're also missing the stoning of adultery verses as well. And good thing it is missing. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to imagine what humanity would look like.
Yep, it'd be pretty gross. So we can all appreciate Muhammad's wives for some of the destructive work they did in tearing apart that Quran and making sure that the sheep ate their verses. Yeah, we didn't like those verses, but oopsie, we had the only copy and our sheep ate them. So yeah, we want to. Gosh, unfortunately, they couldn't let that sheep keep chowing down. So the stuff that they left, my goodness, how horrifying. All right, go ahead.
Actually, I had a live stream just before you. We were talking about what happened to that sheep.
That sheep is the greatest sheep of all time. That sheep is going down in history. I believe I will see that sheep in heaven.
I think like Allah would, if I was Allah, I would share my throne with the sheep. But anyway, so this verses got lost, and yeah. Also, just while we are talking about these missing verses, good time to bring up the adult breastfeeding and Omar's concern that actually stoning of adulteries and adult breastfeeding, as it was practiced, and stoning of adulteries are still practiced today. When people don't find those verses in the Quran, they are going to go astray. So he's expressing how much he's concerned that those verses are supposed to be in the Quran, but no one cared about it. So they're not in the Quran, which is a good thing. But still, like, kind of goes against the perfect preservation.
Yeah, it certainly does. But once again, we know that no matter how clear we are in showing Muslims what's in their sources, they think we're making it up because their leaders have trained them that no matter how, their leaders have basically trained them, no matter how many times we lie to you and you catch us lying, believe us anyway, mindlessly. And the response is, okay, we'll believe anything you say. And so no matter what we say, they're not going to believe us, but we will show them over and over and over again from their own sources. But let's go ahead and check out this verse. This hadith. This is Sunan Ibn Majah, number 1944. Let me see if I have the technology again here. And check it out here. Sunan Ibn Majah, 1944. It was narrated that Aisha said, the verse of stoning and of breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed. And by the way, there you had another Quran verse along the same lines. It was breastfeeding an adult 5 times.
It was 10 times. Allah showed mercy and then brought down to 5 times.
Yeah.
Because he's a very good guy.
Yeah. Oh, and Hatun, for people who are watching this and they have no idea what we're talking about here, what is it? What are these verses about? Because they're sitting there going, what? Breastfeeding an adult? What's all that about? You know what that's about?
In Islam, actually, once I asked Muslim to show me how it's practiced. So in Islam, it's very different. It is very different how Christian lifestyle works. So I can sit down with my brother, or I can sit down with Christian man and we can have a chat or we can talk about it. But in Islam, For you to able to sit with someone who is not your family, that stranger needs to suck your breast. It was 10 times, and then Allah shows mercy and then brings that to 5 times. So man needs to suck your breast for 5 times so that you can sit down and have proper conversation. That's all it is.
Yeah. So again, and notice this is the brilliance of Allah. Right? This is the wisdom of Allah, ladies and gentlemen. If you're so basically, and we find this in the passages. If you're a man and you have to go out of town and you know that your wife is going to be around another man, and you're worried about them doing something sexual while you're gone, you're worried about them having an affair. They came to Muhammad with this problem. Muhammad, hey, I have to go out of town. I'm a businessman and my wife's at home and we have a guy who's around her all the time. What are we going to do? How do I trust him? Don't worry about it. I'll ask Allah. Oh, Allah, could you please tell me? Could you please tell me what to do? What to do if my wife has to be around a man while I'm out of town? Allah says, no problem. Muhammad, tell your followers this. What they need to do is have their wives take their breasts out, put their breasts in the man's mouth 10 times, and then they're not going to be attracted to one another anymore because they're going to have that mother-son relationship.
If you like, I don't want kind of get strike to your channel or anything, but if you think practically, so when a woman already shows her breast to a man who is not her husband or like any man, there is already like sexual things are just already working in their body, okay? And then it's not only you are showing your breast, this man who has already beard,
and that's in the sources. You're saying that because that's exactly what the women said. What are you talking about? He's got a beard.
Yeah, and then Muhammad simply smiles and then says, "Yeah, I know." And then apparently that action practice, this man who's got a beard puts his mouth to the breast of woman for 10 times, and then both of them comes to the conclusion, yeah, it worked. So man now can leave the house, go to work, and then leave those two people who just had like breast suckling moments between them. And it is not like breast suckling as it was in one of your Islamize Me videos. It wasn't like take the milk from the breast and then put cookie in it. You put your mouth in the breast of woman.
It says suckle. It says suckle them, right?
I think just gross.
This is
just wrong. Just wrong.
Hatun, you can't say that, right? This is the wisdom of Allah. Surely Allah knows that the best way to get rid of any get rid of any sexual tension between a woman and some other guy, the best thing they can do is for her to repeatedly, over and over again, put her breasts in the guy's mouth. Allah knows this, right? And if you don't know that, then you don't understand the wisdom of Allah. Allah knows. But everyone, so check this out. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. So, Aisha was accused of adultery. Aisha was accused of adultery, right? And Muhammad received the revelation. This is when Muhammad receives the revelation, saying, "Oh, nope, you need these 4 witnesses and so on." And so, but people didn't bring 4 witnesses, and so, yep, she didn't do anything. I got a revelation from Allah. So Aisha was accused of adultery, and then there weren't 4 witnesses, so she's innocent. But so Aisha, the point was, Aisha knew what it was like to think that you might be about to be stoned to death, right? She's waiting on the revelation from Allah, and she does not know if she's about to be stoned to death because it was revealed as part of the Quran. And this is another one where you find all over the place in the hadiths, they talk about the verse of stoning. The verse of stoning, you stone an adulteress to death. That's in the Quran, according to the hadith. You can open your Quran today. It's not in the Quran. What happened to it? Well, there's that verse, and then Muhammad's wives really had a problem with this verse of suckling an adult, breastfeeding an adult 10 times, and then, so they had a problem with that, everyone had a problem with it, then it got reduced to 5 times, then suddenly, after Muhammad's death, then these verses are no longer in the Quran. So notice, Muhammad's wives are upset about this verse, and by the way, it was interesting because Aisha was the one who was least bothered by this verse. Apparently, they eventually got to her, but Aisha knew what it was like to be a potential victim of stoning, and And Muhammad's wives really thought this was a horrible, horrible idea. Women in general thought this was a horrible idea. We don't want to be sticking our breasts in men's mouths in order to somehow relieve sexual tension. We think that this is a really bad idea. So notice what happens here. Sunan Ibn Majah, 1944, perfect preservation of the Quran. It was narrated that Aisha said, the verse of stoning and of breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed, and the paper was with me under my pillow. Oh, let me get this to the side here. When the messenger of Allah died, so after Muhammad died, so she had it, she had the verses.
She was holding it?
Yeah, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is a myth. You think the entire Quran was, they had these physical books of the Quran. What have we already read? They did not, the Quran had not been compiled. The parts of the Quran, they put them on scraps of paper, on individual pieces of paper, on rocks, on leaves, and so on. It was a very messy, sloppy process. When it came to these verses, Aisha had the only copy. What happened? Well, when the messenger of Allah died, as soon as this guy drops dead, oh, we're all preoccupied with his death, and oops, a tame sheep came in and ate it. So this is, everyone points this out. This is the original version of the dog ate my homework, right? What happened to your homework? Oopsie, the
I was
dog
going to
ate.
say that.
Yeah.
Like you say, dog is my best friend. You use your dog for every excuse. And in here now, Aisha and this sheep probably become best friends.
Oh yeah. I would not even have. See now I'm technically a psychopath, so like other people really love their animals. I never really love animals, right? I don't have those, my brain is not wired to have those emotions. The only time I really kind of like an animal is when it's done something amazing, right? Like when a dog, runs through a fire to save all its owners and stuff like that. I think, okay, that dog deserves a long, good life. That dog needs to be taken care of. That dog is a hero as much as a human being is a hero. Well, that's kind of the way it was with this sheep, right? This sheep is a hero. The sheep saved a lot of problems, saved a lot of women from a lot of problems over the centuries. And really, we have Muhammad's wife, Aisha, and Muhammad's other wives to thank for this, because this is clearly a plot, right? This is clearly Muhammad just died. We've got we're the ones with who had the only copies of some of these verses. Let's take out a few. Let's take out a few verses that we don't like. Wow, what a bunch of awesome women.
We did bring those verses to Speaker's Corner to get how does it work in Islamic community. They just got so upset with us. I'm just like, get upset with Allah and Muhammad, but no, they choose to be upset with us.
Yep. And notice, it's the same thing right here. What have we been doing this entire live stream? We're quoting passages that the Muslims here have never seen before because their leaders keep these passages from them. And then they fill their minds with complete nonsense about perfect preservation to build them a false faith built on a foundation of lies. We actually have more respect for them. You're not just people for us to lie to. We want you to know the truth so that you can come to an informed decision, not based on lies, but based on actually knowing the truth. And when we present what's in their own sources, they hate us and they're angry at us. And so same thing at Speaker's Corner. All right, before we move on, I'm way behind on super chat, so let's go through some of the super chats here. Hindu historian, way back at the beginning, says this was burning a hole in my pocket and everything's closed. So he's stuck at home, so he sent us money. Carl Moore said super sticker with a fox. People love those foxes, and I see koalas above this. Magdalene G said DCCI Ministries, bold, brave, courageous sister. God bless you, Hatun. London thanks you.
Thank you.
She said London thanks you. Greg C. in the super chat. Rebel Mark says God bless you and yours, David, and God bless you, Hatun. And he's got a rose there for you. Lisa Look with the super sticker that looks like a koala bear. I only see miniature versions here on the summary, but it's got I think it's a koala bear saying victory. Rore Husky 1988 says, David and Hatun, what would you think of an RE teacher that said in front of the classrooms that Muhammad plagiarized from the Bible? So what would we think of an RE teacher? What's an RE teacher? Is that some...
That's religion education.
Oh, okay. So what would we think of an RE, a religious education teacher that said in front of the classrooms that Muhammad plagiarized from the Bible? So is that an actual event, or is he just hypothetical?
I don't think that will happen in England because we've got like so political correctness. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it happened. I'm not aware of it. It happened. Mm-hmm. RE teachers in England usually kind of show, all the religions are all the same. There is not focus on the truths. Like you will go to the class, you will hear, according to Islam, Jesus didn't die. Yet they prepare to celebrate Easter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rory. I would be careful, but I think you could say a lot of things and get a lot of information across if you're a religious education teacher. I think you could get a lot of information across such that if people complained, you could defend yourself, right? So for instance, if you showed passages from the Quran and you showed parallel stories in earlier sources where it was clearly plagiarized from these sources, you could just do that without saying plagiarism. So you say, hey, kids in the class, look, here's something that's said in the Quran, and we do see something, in this 3rd century source, or this 4th century source, or this 5th century source. What do you guys think? And you could leave it to them. And they say plagiarism. What did you do? You put sources in front of their faces. If someone's going to call you out for that, I don't see why anyone could accuse you of anything if you let them draw their own conclusions. And so yeah, I would if you were in that position, I would present sources to people and let them come to their own conclusions. Lots of kids are smarter than
Muhammad.
They're smarter than Muhammad, so they're gonna see it really quickly. Juju B with a giant cup of coffee. There's a super sticker with a little character and then a giant cup of coffee as big as the character. So that one's actually perfect for you, Hatun. Adisho said, hello all, David. I love your channel. It's very informative. Thank you. We have Tatiana J, Andy Shattuck in the super chat. Bob Tom says, I want that coffee mug. Says he wants the coffee jug, mug. Rory said, I made a video on Muhammad and his child bride. I gave the link to your video. Check it out sometime. I will do that. Animal says, go to DCCI Ministries, Islam Critiqued, Bob the Biller, Soko Films, and the Arabian Prophet channels to learn more on these important issues. Yes, and if the mods want to add links to those channels, any of those channels, please do that. And again, the link to DCCI is in the description box. Arch Imagara Sancti says, God bless you. Rory Husky again, Frank Dunford, super sticker, Nicole with the super sticker. Siri Svenberg says, hi from Norway. Hi, Siri. Luke Low-Key Zethril says, why would God choose an illiterate prophet to give the world his law? To be fair, I think God can do that. It's more along the lines of why that particular illiterate prophet. In other words, if the only problem we had with Muhammad was his illiteracy, I wouldn't consider that a problem. As long as he was, if he's really a good guy and he had reliable people to record his message, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But it's like the worst guy I can imagine. And on top of that, he's illiterate. Basic said, the goat ate it. Yeah, we know that.
Apparently, Muslims do get offended. Actually, it's a sheep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rory again says, David Wood and Hatun, what do you think of someone who left Islam because of Muhammad and Aisha? So what would you think of someone leaving Islam over that issue?
Well done. Finally, you did it. I think when it comes to Islam, people are leaving Islam because of the Quran and because of Muhammad. Most of things what I say. When it comes to Muhammad, even imams don't know Muhammad, thought it was all right to not only marry with a child, have a sex with a child without her permission.
Yep.
Like imams in UK do not know. Most of imams do not know. Even missionary world like denying it. So if you kind of think, yeah, that's the issue, and you left Islam, I think congratulations, your moral standards are much better than Allah and Muhammad. So well done. And make sure you rescue others as well.
Basic in the super chat say, oh yeah, and my view on that, Rory, as far as leaving Islam because of Muhammad and Aisha, yeah, it's, I mean, you know, as someone who believes in the Bible, we look at people like King David, who did horrible things at certain points. He did great things at certain points and did horrible things at certain points. But the point is, in the Bible, it's wrong. It was wrong for him to do. Yeah. It was wrong for him to do those things. So the Bible calls out prophets for sin. In Islam, Allah just keeps affirming some of the worst practices ever. And so you've got a problem with, is this really from God? You've got Allah affirming Muhammad as the pattern of conduct. Would God really be affirming this man as a pattern of conduct when he's the sort of guy who had sex with a 9-year-old girl? Would Allah give revelations? And you have this. You have this in the Quran, where you are allowed to marry and divorce, marry, have sex with, and divorce girls all before they've reached the age of puberty. Is this the sort of thing?
66.
Yeah, this is. I mean, is this something that God is going to reveal for all mankind? And so, yeah. And besides that, Muslims have made it one of their arguments for Islam that this Muhammad's character was so great that he must be from God. And so, if that's one of the main arguments, and you look at his character and you're like, gosh, this guy had sex with a 9-year-old girl and then set the example for everyone else. This is rough here. So yeah, I can imagine leaving over that. Connor Terrell said, so no Oreos and breast milk. Lol. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. Yeah, I think Connor's referring to Islamicize Me, where we had an episode about and vocab was dunking the cookies. Not a verse said, David, thanks for yet another amazing stream. Hatun is a legend, and I hope that she becomes a regular guest on your channel, because with Islam being so disturbing, we need the laughter too. Actually, it might be good to I might check Jay's schedule. Maybe we'll have you and Jay on like at the same time discussing a topic, and then we can kind of make it kind of invite all Muslims to. Hey, it would be like Speaker's Corner, but like indoors, right? While everyone's social distancing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Corns Chandler in the super chat. Riaz Qureshi says Islam finished by farm animals. Quran eaten by a sheep, and Muhammad poisoned by a lamb. Yeah, Islam. So the Quran's destroyed by a sheep, and Muhammad was taken out by a lamb. Aaron Larson says, Aisha's sheep equals best friend when Momo killed dogs. Yep. Karis said, Hatun, I'm not sure what Karis means by that. Karis says, Hatun, what is your background? Love the mug. I don't know if she means what's that in the background behind you, or if she means like, you know, what's your background? You already shared a little bit of your background, but go ahead and answer both.
My background, I do have some books. On the top shelf, I don't see YouTube, so I don't know if you are able to see it, but you can see 37 different Arabic Qurans. Mm-hmm. Remember, it is one perfect Quran, so you've got 37 of them over there, and then I've got Aisha, Sauda, and Hafsa as a mug also on the side, and this mug is just a kind of gift.
Mm-hmm. And a couple more. Andy says, God bless you guys, and thanks from Brooklyn. Tatiana J says, Hatun, you're beautiful inside and out. Marilyn Murphy and Apple Goo, both in the super chat. All right, I think I got through most of them. I might have missed a few. We'll do this. Jump back into it in a few. All right, Hatun. What else?
So what we've done so far is we looked at the first compiled Quran, and then we little bit talked about the second Quran, and we talked about approximately 500 verses, which somehow out of miracle got lost. Mm. And of course, we expressed how grateful we are that especially this adult breast suckling verse got eaten by sheep. And I think from now we can I don't know what you think, but we can move to the. So with all these things happens, Uthman steps in and then he produces kind of so-called this Quran. That's 114 chapters, 6,236 verses of the Quran. Mm-hmm. And Muslims believe this Quran goes back to Uthman and it is dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound, exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So that's overall whole story. Mm-hmm. I step in this time and then I say, hold on a minute, there is a problem. First of all, why would Uthman order all Quranic materials to be burned in 652? What are you trying to hide? And then I would ask the question, why again all the Quran has been destroyed in 714 by Hajjaj? And then also I would step in again and then ask the Qurans which got destroyed in 1924. And then ask simple question, did Muhammad ever give permission? Or did Muhammad ever say, okay, to this Quran Muslims are reciting day after day? Mm-hmm. Those would be like my basic questions. Then, I guess as we go back and look at the Islamic tradition, one of the things we will see is, I think you can kind of explain this much better than me, but Quran as the eternal word of Allah on the day of judgment is going to intercede for mankind, those who did the right recitation. Mm-hmm. So it has a divine power.
Mm-hmm. It will the Quran will actually appear as in the form of a pale man. So keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, the Quran is eternal. It's Allah's eternal speech, and Muslim theologians reasoned that there can't be a change in Allah, and therefore if he has speech, his speech is eternal. It can't be something that was added to him at some point. Therefore his speech, the Quran, is eternal, and yet the Quran can appear as a pale man to intercede for you on the day of judgment. And so, by the way, I mean, I plan on making videos on these issues, but notice you have the speech of Allah, and Muslim theologians reason that it must be eternal, so it's his eternal speech. So now you have Allah's speech, which is eternal, but it's also personal and can appear. It has memories, can testify, can speak, and so on, defend you, and so on. But the same sort of thing applies to Allah's spirit. Allah's spirit is not something that is created. Allah creates life with his spirit. He breathes out his spirit. And so notice the exact same reasoning would apply to the spirit of Allah that applies to the speech of Allah, right? Because the idea is anything that originates from within Allah must originate eternally from within Allah, or there would be a change in Allah. And therefore his speech must be eternal. But notice the same reason would apply to his spirit that he breathes out. This comes from within him. And so his speech, his spirit, which he breathes out, is also eternal, but his spirit also appears in the form of man. According to the Quran, the spirit takes on the form of a man to appear to Mary and talk to Mary. So the spirit is personal, as a personal agent who takes the form of a man as well. So notice what you have here, ladies and gentlemen. You've got Allah, his eternal speech, which is personal and takes the form of a man, and his eternal spirit, which is personal and takes the form of a man. This looks like a bad copy of Christianity while denying the Trinity, right? It looks like a horrible bad copy of Christianity while still denying the Trinity. And so Muslims just have these three eternal personal agents, and yet this is somehow pure monotheism according to them. But go ahead.
And just to add, that spirit which is appeared to Mary is not just appeared in a form of man, as a perfect man. That's very important, like without any fault, six packs, whatever you expect from the perfect shape of man. I had to Google that.
It didn't look like me, let's put it that way.
So as the Quran on the day of judgment is gonna take up, so word of Allah becomes a book, okay, steps into this world, and on the day of judgment it's gonna appear as a pale man. Mm-hmm. And it's going to intercede. He's going to intercede for those people who recite the right recitation. With that, we have a problem. Because remember, earlier we talked about Allah revealed the Quran in 7 different ways. Uthman got rid of that and then made it in one way. But when we look at the early Islamic tradition, we see around 839, there were 25 different version of the Quran out there. And in 912s, we are talking about 50 different versions of the Quran were out there. And today, Muslims are simply saying just this is the one. Then the question is this the one who is going to appeal as a pale man and intercede for you? That's kind of, I think, a bit sad, because if that's not one of these 50 Qurans from 912 or one of the Quran from time of Muhammad, then you messed up, because there is nothing is going to intercede for you. And something happens where like lots of different Qurans appears in the history of Islam. As the time comes on, around 920s, they decided, okay, now it's all messing up when it comes to the education. They are going to officialize one Quran. So they pick up the Hafs Quran, which is dated approximate 190 years after Muhammad. They pick up the Hafs Quran, and then they choose one of, so there are 5 Hafs Quran, they pick one of the Hafs Quran, and then they start using that. So that's the Quran Muslims are reciting. What happened was, recently, I was challenged by a Muslim missionary a couple of years ago, where Muslim missionary said, wherever you go in the world, everyone recites the same Quran and reads the same Quran. That is the miracle happens. I believe God always provides for me. So suddenly I end up having different Arabic Qurans. Miracle happens. Today we've got 37 different Arabic Qurans. And sometimes I do get wonder which Arabic Quran is going to intercede for those Muslims on the Day of Judgment, because it might be one of those people, one of those Qurans. And they've got over 90,000 textual variations within them. It is kind of sad reality when it comes to Islam. It's not only like approximate 500 verses are missing. Alongside of that, there are lots of different Arabic Qurans out there where people are reading and reciting in their mosques.
And so we have, matter of fact, so you've got those behind us, but I also have a picture of the different Qurans. Let me toss this up real quick. Let's see. And here we go. So different Arabic Qurans. So just to be clear, for the Muslims here who are saying, no, they're different covers. No, they're just, they're different on the outside. They're different outside. You printed them yourself. So these are 37 different Qurans with actual differences in the Arabic text. And I know this because no matter how many times you tell people these are different Arabic Qurans, they say, nope, you're just talking about different translations. And these are not translations. These are Arabic Qurans, and they contain differences in the Arabic, and not just different covers, not just insignificant differences, actual differences in the Arabic text, meaning that they are not identical, meaning that when we read quotations from Muslim apologists saying perfect preservation right down to the letter, no difference anywhere ever, that is a false claim, and whoever is saying these things is misleading and deceiving Muslims, because the evidence shows something completely different. First last said Allah said 7. Hatun found 37.
That just kind of simply debunks the argument there is only one perfect Quran. But I think my concern is mainly because it is not shared information, therefore it keeps 1.8 billion people in Islam. And you do show those different Arabic Qurans to Arabic-speaking Muslims. Like I took some of them couple of months ago. I was in somewhere. I took some of Arabic Qurans. They were surprised, like they never seen different Arabic Qurans. They were surprised. They just they didn't like me at all. But they did look at it and then they said, yes, this is different. But when it comes to Western world, when it comes to the Muslim missionaries, they are just like, oh, it's all the same, it's all the same. But these different Qurans, only one of them is going to intercede for you. That is the problem.
Unless these are all wrong and something like Ibn Masud's Quran was correct, or Ubay ibn Ka'b's, in which case all these are wrong.
Yeah.
And so you don't even know, Muslims. You don't even know. You might all be condemned. I mean, gosh, Ibn Masud told you. He told you. Protect your Qurans. Hide them so that you can actually have a real Quran on the Day of Judgment and not the corruption of that deceiver, Zayd ibn Thabit. And what do Muslims do? No, we want Zayd ibn Thabit. What an amazing religion.
Ibn Abbas is going to be next to you, and then he's going to say on the Day of Judgment, when he sees the shin of Allah, he's going to say, I told you. Yep. I told you, but you are missing the point. Too late.
All right, we have a comment here from Noreen. Noreen said, let me refute David. All right, Noreen, we're going to give you that opportunity right now. So, I mean, we've said a lot, so let's use a particular example. Let's take a particular example, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to refute us. I'm going to give you the opportunity to refute us right now. So let's go back. Let's go back to, and what do we have now? It's 9:40, so we'll go about another 15 minutes or so, and then we'll close out. So we'll go back to the hadith from Sahih Muslim number 2286, where Abu Musa warns the Quran reciters, the next generation of Quran reciters, not to harden their hearts, as were hardened the hearts of the first generation of Quran reciters, who were too lazy and stopped reciting the Quran because it was too boring. And then they forgot multiple chapters of the Quran. And in case you're thinking, no, he just forgot it. He doesn't say that. He says, I'll quote you a verse out of this Quran. It's a verse that's no longer in the Quran because the chapter is no longer in the Quran. He says, why? Because they forgot it. So go ahead, Noreen, give me your refutation. Give me your refutation. I will put it on the screen. And everyone, if I miss Noreen's refutation, please inform me, because I'm scrolling through here and the comments come pretty fast. But Noreen, you asked for an opportunity to refute us. I'm giving you the opportunity to refute us. Please explain what Abu Musa in Sahih Muslim is talking about here, and how when we look at this, we should conclude perfect preservation right down to the letter, and not entire chapters of the Quran have been lost. And we have more comments from Noreen. Noreen said, David, can I refute it, please? Absolutely. I'm giving you the opportunity. Refute it. By all means, refute it. Then Noreen says, David, yes, we know you can type David. We know you can type Noreen. I'm giving you the opportunity right now. I'm not going to sit here forever. Tell us what Abu Musa means in Sahih Muslim when he tells the reciters of Basra not to let their hearts be hardened as the first generation was, not to forget entire chapters of the Quran as the first generation did. Tell us what this means, and why we should not conclude that the Quran has been changed, and how we should conclude that the Quran has been perfectly preserved, even though entire chapters, according to your own sources, came up missing. We've got on the screen here. Tell us what it's missing. I'm only going to give you about another 60 seconds to start posting, but I don't see any responses here. Guys, did I miss them? Noreen said it's slow. I don't know what you mean it's slow, Noreen. Noreen said,
I think because it takes 20 seconds for them to hear what you are saying and then reply to that. That's how it is in my channel.
Yeah, but Noreen has posted multiple comments. David, it's slow, things like that. Just no response. So okay, Hatun. Well, yeah, we don't want to, we don't want to rush Noreen. So Noreen, you can think about this passage for another couple minutes, and Hatun can add anything she wants on the topic of Quran preservation. But I'll wait for you. Take your time. Think about your response, and then when you're ready, you can explain this passage to us, and then we'll come back to it, and you can explain perfect preservation of the Quran right down to the letter when your own sources say entire chapters came up missing. And again, that's only one. So I just like to hear an explanation for that, let alone all the others, talking about verses being eaten by a sheep and large passages, more than 100 verses coming up missing just from Surah 33, all that stuff. Just explain this one, and that'll be some sort of progress. All right, Hatun, what do you think?
I think it will be shame. It is not something I would encourage Muslims to do, because if they are going to rebut you, if they are going to refute you, all they are going to do is they are going to put Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, all of their Muslim scholars, most reliable Muslims from the early Islam, under the bus. And I wouldn't want to do that. You don't want to put your Prophet under the bus. You don't want to put Ibn Abbas under the bus, let alone Masud or Ubay bin Ka'b. And all it's been done tonight is sources were given to you. And there is nothing wrong with that. Like, as David said, you have been lied. It's not only you've been lied only once in your lifetime, but you've been lied by your family. You've been lied by your imam. You've been lied by other Muslims. And people still continue to lie. And there are consequences of this. Unless you are going to bring us something which Allah clearly states when Muslim 2286 says, 300 verses got lost. Allah actually meant something else, which usually Allah does without any reference. Or if you want to pull more denial games, that's absolutely fine. But deep down in your heart, you will be accountable for the information which was passed to you from Sahih Muslim in this occasion.
And so, I'm still, I don't know if Noreen has posted a response yet. I'm still scrolling through, but did want to post this objection here from Nona Bubble. Nona Bubble said, yes, but it's not like the Christian Bibles where they don't know which version is correct. Quran only has variants of pronouncing with the same message. So the claim here is that the variants in those 37 different Qurans are only differences of pronunciation and nothing more. So is that correct, or are there actually different words and phrases and so on used?
So, David, how easy it is for you to understand my pronunciation?
Of English?
Yeah. As I'm speaking,
fine.
How easy do you find it is to understand that?
No problem.
No problem. If we write an article, we would be using the same spelling to write the articles. Okay? So this has nothing to do with the pronunciation. If it was just a pronunciation, as they write the words, they wouldn't write it indifferently, which mean is different, such as in Arabic, the word fight and the word kill are two different things. In Arabic, creatures and creation, they are two different things. In Arabic, slave and being in presence of someone is two different things. And their implications are different as well. And I can give you over 90,000 textual variations from them. They are written differently. Because they are written differently, they've got different meaning, and therefore they pronounced differently. We've got videos on this. You can check it out. We publicized, I think, 70-something textual variations. Beside that, there is a Surah 2 verse 137. Ibn Abbas writes a commentary on that and then says, actually, there is a word called bimite, which means as, same as. If you write it as like that, there is a theological implications. You are making someone equal with God, with Allah. Therefore, do not write it. And then we look at some of the earliest Quranic manuscripts, and then we see some of the manuscripts doesn't have that word. But as the time went on, people thought, who cares what Ibn Abbas says? We will put the word in it. And it does make theological differences. I can point you to videos which we made where you can see in a slideshow what are some of those textual variations. But they are not pronunciations. They are written Arabic words. Meaning is different because they are written differently. That's what it is.
Yeah, and that's and keep in mind, everyone, that's just the current manuscript. So that's after the all, the variants are burned and so on. That's after they get rid of Ibn Masud's version and Ubay ibn Ka'b's version, because I mean, keep in mind when you're reading when you're reading about the things that were different between our Quran and Ubay ibn Ka'b's Quran, it's things like in Surah 33, verse 6 of the Quran, when it said that Muhammad's wives are their mothers. This is why they're given Muhammad's wives are given the title mothers of the faithful. The Quran now says, and his wives are their mothers. So the Muhammad's wives are the mothers of the faithful. Well, in Ubay ibn Ka'b's version of the Quran, he also had, and Muhammad is a father to them. Muhammad is a father to them was originally in the Quran. So notice, this is not a dialect difference, right? That's an entire phrase. If you talk about, the early guys, they had different chapters. Ibn Masud had fewer chapters. Ubay ibn Ka'b had 2 entire additional chapters in his Quran. We read about other chapters coming up missing and so on. So you go back to the early sources, you find all kinds of differences. The differences Hatun is talking about right now is, even in spite of all their efforts over the centuries to conceal evidence and to settle upon one Quran, they still can't do it. They still can't come up with one single Quran. There are differences.
So we have the examples of Surah 33 verse 6. Same in Ibn Masud's Quran as well. Ibn Masud's Quran says, and his wives are their mothers, and their fathers. If you look at the earliest writing, like I've got list of just examples for the Surah 2 where early Muslims are disagreeing, and in Surah 2 you've got over 100 textual variations which early Muslims were disagreeing with one another. That's like problem.
All we ever see is problems. Guys, has Noreen posted a response? I'm scrolling, but I was talking for a minute, so I don't know if I'm listening. I don't know if I'm missing something here. So could anyone tell me if Noreen posted a response? If not, I'm probably going to give up on Noreen. Well, I see Noreen down here said, here it is, but I don't see a response yet. Trying to be nice, guys. We only have a few minutes left, and we have to cut out. So tell us what Abu Musa means. Tell us what Abu Musa means when he says that their entire chapters of the Quran were coming up missing. Yeah, again, guys, let me know if I missed the response, because I see Noreen posted, here it is, but I don't see anything. But I'm not just going to keep waiting if there was no actual response. And guys, do you even understand how patient we are? That we present information, but then a Muslim specifically says, I want to refute you, and we stop, have no idea who this Muslim is, and we say, all right, we'll stop right now, you can refute us. Here's a simple point, go ahead and refute that simple point. In your sources, we have tons of sources showing that your Quran has been changed repeatedly, and yet Muslims say, perfect preservation right down to the letter. And so we ask, well, just explain one of those passages for us. We give you an easy one. We give you one from one of your most respected collections of hadiths. Ask you to refute that single one. And I am not seeing a refutation. We've given you like 10 minutes now. Oh, Slam RN said, yes, Noreen posted a response. Hang on. Let me try and do a search. Let me see if I can go back and find all Noreen's comments. Oh, gosh. Now I'm searching for Noreen, but there are tons of comments because people were talking about her. Trying to find it.
One of the things I am assuming is probably just discrediting Sahih Muslim. That's very common objection I get regarding that hadith.
Yeah, and by the way, I love that. I love it when they throw their greatest, most respected hadith collectors under the bus, and then they tell us that we have to believe in Muhammad when his companions are just and their followers are the biggest bunch of liars the world has ever seen, apparently, because they're just constantly making stuff up. Gosh, guys, I don't want to keep sitting here forever. We got 1,250 people in the chat. Guys, someone just, if you saw Noreen's response, go ahead and cut and paste it again so I can see what it is. I've searched for it. I did not find. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to be nice. Noreen requested an opportunity to refute us. We granted that opportunity.
So, if I'm kind of just on YouTube now, it says she wanted to write, but she can write only 200 characters, and apparently YouTube is not allowing her to write more than that.
Well, yeah, but that's fine. You could give us a basic idea. What are you going to say? I mean, what is Sahih Muslim not reliable? Is Abu Musa a liar?
Okay,
what are you going to say?
It just came, David.
Okay. Someone post a response?
Yeah, so how come some Christians read the Old Testament from the Torah?
What?
How come some Christians read the Old Testament from the Torah and not the Bible because they fear the translation has been biased to suit Christianity?
That's Noreen?
That's maybe. That's what my text is saying. Because someone is just sending me text.
Yeah, I see Noreen complaining that
YouTube is not allowing her to write.
Yeah. All right, guys. There's nothing I can do here. We need to wrap it up. It's 9:56. Guys, we tried repeatedly. Don't know. Not aware of a response. Yeah, Noreen. Yeah. If a lot of people are saying Noreen, you can put it in the comments. Afterwards. So you can't post a comment now until this. It takes probably like 15 minutes or half an hour, something like that, to come up. To where this comes up as a separate video, and then you can post your comments in the comment section. So feel free afterwards, and everyone be sure, if you're interested in Noreen's response, that you check it out afterwards to see what the defense of the perfect Quran was. A couple last second super chats here. Marilyn Murphy says, Sheepgate, film at 11. David is a savage apologist. Hatun is a superheroine. Rory said, so Rory was asking the question earlier about a teacher of religious education. He said, David, I had a religious education teacher who was Christian. He said in front of my classmates that Muhammad plagiarized from the Bible. I was there. I think everyone who reads the sources and is at all critical of Islam agrees that Muhammad's plagiarizing all kinds of sources. It's just surprising to find that a teacher said that. Isaac Cruz said the sheep ate my surah.
What do you mean his surah?
Yeah. A couple more. Not a verse said, David and Hatun, please forgive my ignorance, but I have a question. What does SWT mean, as in Allah, SWT? Does the SWT stand for sexy white thing? Because that would actually make perfect sense. No, SWT is an abbreviation of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, which means something like glory be to him, the exalted. Yeah, praise be to him, the exalted one. And David the Goliath said, finally, do you know about Musaylama, who was also a rival prophet claimant to Muhammad? He even produced divine verses better than the Quran. Quran challenged to produce something like it because of Musaylama. Yeah, I mean, the early history of Islam is very interesting, with the disputes that were going on and how they eventually settled onto this version of Islam. And that's just one of the reasons why this is a cool area to be involved in, ladies and gentlemen. So for those of you who want to get started in apologetics dealing with Islam, I encourage you to pick a topic. The one we're talking about right now, the preservation of the Quran, is a good one, because if you learn some passages, you can wreak havoc on one of the most common Muslim myths in the world. But you want to learn early Islamic history, that is powerful as well. All right, Hatun, well, we're wrapping up. Any final words, final thoughts for everyone out there?
Keep away from Quran, keep away from Islam. But tonight we try to look at the Islamic sources and try to see what early Muslims thought regarding if Quran perfectly preserved or not, because 21st century Muslims are not only making this claim, but they are teaching this claim to their children. And what we saw is actually early Muslims simply disagree when it comes to preservation of the Quran with 21st century Muslims. Memorize the hadiths and ask your Muslim friends why Quran has been changed, why do they follow something has not been well preserved. That means Allah failed to keep his promises, because Allah said he's going to preserve it and he failed to do so.
Yeah, and keep in mind when we read passages, ladies and gentlemen, when we read passages where the Muslims where the Muslim scholars and apologists say perfect preservation right down to the letter, they say that this is fulfillment of the prophecy in the Quran, that the Quran would be perfectly preserved. So they're the ones putting this forward, saying Allah predicted perfect preservation right down to the letter. This is Muslims and Muslim scholars, Muslim apologists saying that Allah predicted perfect preservation right down to the letter. Well, if that's what Allah predicted, then Allah has failed pretty miserably, because we find, again, entire chapters coming up missing, large passages coming up missing, verses eaten by a sheep. As a rule, if your God can't protect your word from a sheep, probably shouldn't be bragging about perfect preservation right down to the letter. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we talk about miracles. We talk about miracles in Islam, the miracle of the Quran. The only miracle here, if there's a miracle here, ladies and gentlemen, it's this.
Sheep.
The Quran, no, I'm not even going there. The Quran has all of the features of a book that's been changed and corrupted. It has all of the features. If you list every feature of a book that's been changed and corrupted over the centuries, the Quran has all of them. And yet, miraculously, it's still been perfectly preserved. That's the miracle, right? That's the miracle. It has all the characteristics of any other book that's been changed repeatedly, and yet it's been perfectly preserved anyway. If anything's a miracle, I guess that would be. But I'll stick with the resurrection. And I'll just close out with this comment. Sophia Film said, Hatun is the best, better than you, David.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's a good comment. Hatun is the best, better than you, David. So that's a good comment to close out with. Amen, Sophia. And by the way, Sophia Films, I always assumed that you were a woman because of the Sophia, but someone pointed out that you're actually a man. So then I'm thinking, oh, okay, so that makes sense. So he's doing it in the sense of the Greek meaning of the word Sophia. Yeah. So yeah. Sophia, wisdom and films. And so, okay, I apologize that you're actually giving the title of your films here. All right. Well, thanks to Hatun for joining us. I think everyone liked the discussion, because we had around, we're still over 1,200 in the chat right now, but much more to come, because again, Friday I'll be having a discussion with Sam Shimon, and we issued the challenge to Muslims to give us one unequivocal verse in the entire Quran saying that the gospel has been corrupted, and we'll be taking all those challenges live on Friday. And there'll be more to come after that. Again, everyone, be sure to subscribe to DCCI. The link is in the description box. God bless everyone. God bless Hatun and DCCI.
Thank you.
And catch you all next time.